World's Columbian Exposition of 1893, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, was meant to commemorate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's discovery of the New World in 1492. The fair was not only designed to showcase the artistic, cultural, and technical advances of the United States, but also the city of Chicago's monumental renaissance just 20 years after the Great Fire. The remarkable commercial and artistic success of the Columbian Exposition created a turning point in Chicago's history and served to put our city on the world map. With the goal of celebrating how far America had come in 400 years since Columbus's landing in America, planners also wanted to emphasize America's standing as an educational, commercial, and cultural leader in the world. New York City, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, and Chicago had all wanted to host the fair. And out of all those great cities, the U.S. Congress chose Chicago to represent the country in this grand event. The historical question I began with was, why was the World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 so important to the city of Chicago? This question is very broad, but I wanted to look at as many possible ways in which the city was transformed and if the event had any influence on the rest of the world. The question didn't really change too much, but it did expand to include the question, what were the ways in which the exposition left its mark on the city, and what was the lasting impact it had on the world? I found many ways to answer these questions, and I also found it would be difficult to overestimate the impact the fair had at the time, on both the local and world level. It also helped me focus on various other key facts about the fair and how they changed the outside world. For example, how the use of the electric light bulb was incorporated into most of the fair, and was then constantly required in every home in the major cities around the world. The same could be said about the architecture that was used to create the White City. It was emulated by cities around the world, especially the growing urban cities in the United States. The topic of the World's Columbian Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair of 1893, integrates the 2013 theme very well. This event was a turning point in both the city of Chicago's history and United States history because it provided the world with a window into the future, and not just the future in Chicago or even America. It showcased for the changes to come in the 20th century. The World's Columbian Exposition provided the first glimpses of technological advances such as electricity, moving pictures, the phonograph, and early motor cars. The millions who came to witness these modern marvels were also treated to the breathtaking beauty of the White City, which is the name the fair came to be known by due to its great number of white stucco neoclassic buildings set amidst the pools and lagoons made especially for the fair. The ideas put forth at the World's Columbian Exposition were a turning point, not just in technology, but in the City Beautiful movement, which highlighted the advantages of planning public space for the benefit of all, not just the wealthy. The urban experience up to this point was pretty bleak. Even if you had money, the city was hard to live in due to the crowded tenements and difficulty keeping the water and ground safe from sewage. European cities had gone through some of their own growth and had solved some of these problems, but the United States was still working with new spaces and very fast growing populations, and Chicago was leading the way in urban planning at this time. The fact that the White City was not built with permanent structures was a shame. They had much to do in very little time. That these buildings went up as magnificently and as quickly as they did was a triumph for the city, and left visitors in awe. The World's Columbian Exposition matters because it was an event that put the city of Chicago on the world stage, and showcased not only our technological ingenuity and skill, but it also introduced the world to the beauty, culture, and industriousness of our citizens. Individuals like Daniel Burnham and Frederick Law Olmsted took the project and built the exposition into the stunning example of architecture and city planning that has set an example for the rest of the country and even the world. During the 6 months it was open, May to October 1893, the fair turned out to be one of the most successful events of its kind, attracting millions of people. In 1893, our young city, itself just 60 years old and still recovering from the Great Fire of 1871, rose to the occasion and brought out one of the greatest advancements the country had ever seen. Burnham and his team had just 3 short years to go from plans on a drawing board to welcoming guests in Chicago's White City, filled with breathtaking gardens and lagoons and buildings that seemed to go up overnight. During construction, the buildings went up fast, but the dangers were constant. Many men lost their lives while working under severe weather conditions, sub-zero temperatures and snow in the winter, and excessive heating in the summer. And fire was still an ever-present danger. But the challenge that Burnham faced wasn't time. It was the land itself. The ground was softer than most construction sites at the time, so innovations on how to fortify the foundations of buildings were made, and they are still used today. Other firsts in engineering include the first elevated electronic railway, the first moving walkway, and Gray's teleautograph, a device used to reproduce handwriting at a distance, but used in construction as a projector to assist designing windows and doors. There's no way to underestimate the immensity of what they built. 633 acres of exhibit space, or 7.5 times the size of today's Disneyland in California, with 400 different buildings that used 18,000 tons of iron and steel and 75 million feet of lumber. The biggest of these buildings, the Manufacturer and Liberal Arts Building, could have held the Eiffel Tower laid on its side. Our country had gone from 5 million people at the start of the century to over 76 million by the time of the fair. Our outlook for the future was immeasurable, and the fair served to demonstrate the strength in our ingenuity. The city of Chicago was forever changed by this event. Our pride and our belief in ourselves and our abilities was forfeited by this demonstration of our hard work and innovation. In fact, one of our 4 stars on the flag of the city of Chicago stands for this event. The others are the Great Fire of 1871, the Next Century of Progress exhibition of 1933, and the establishment of Fort Dearborn. Thanks to the visionaries of that time, Daniel Burnham, John Root, and Frederick Olmsted, who worked in combination with the businessmen who founded the event, Philip Amore, Gustavus Swift, Cyrus McCormick, George Pullman, and Marshall Fields, our city found its rightful place on the world stage, a place we've kept ever since.